Hey, Colin.
Hello, how are you?
All good. It looks like I'm the host today. Lukasz is not going to like it. I'm not going to let him in. I was expecting Lukasz to be here. Okay. Hello, everyone. Hello, Jonas, Antune, Barbaño, Maciek.
Hello.
How many people? Oh, Jonas is twice. Is it another Jonas? Yeah, we have Jonas Lagoni and Jonas. Hey, Ben. Hey, Jesse. Hey, Mike.
Hello.
Hello. Where is Lukasz?
Every time I come on one of these, Mike has a new sci-fi background. I always try and work out which TV/film it's from. I think that's the memory banks from 2001: Space Odyssey, but I'm not sure.
Which one?
Mike's background.
Mike's. Okay.
Yes.
I was looking at the Francisco's mask behind him.
Ah, yes.
Yeah, I was like, I'm curious which one are you referring to? Gallery view. Okay, I can see you all now. So where is Lukasz? He's waiting for us in another call. He's just having fun himself along. Oh, that sounds really bad. Hey, Jim. Welcome.
Hey.
Okay.
Hi, folks. I just joined another meeting and was confused why nobody's joining. Just give me a few minutes. I'm gonna paste links in Slack. Why so silent? People. Recording started already? Okay.
Yeah, it's already recording.
That's why everyone are behaving.
Anything they say is immortalized on YouTube.
Oh yeah, true. Oops. Okay, so it's 4 minutes past. So I think we can start. Let me just open the.
So I made you host. You were co-host before. Now you're host. I'm nothing. No, I'm not host anymore. I'm nothing now. So you probably have to accept new people because I saw there were people when I didn't. So of course, stupid me. I didn't accept them first.
You can be co-host, right?
I can be co-host. I didn't want to.
I just made you co-host. You can't refuse.
Again. Make me work. Why you make me work?
Get used to. Okay. So hello, it's another AsyncAPI meeting. Sorry for that I look like I'm being confused, but I am confused. I just joined wrong meeting, was waiting for you folks, and apparently you were waiting for me. So many people are joining. Come on. So as usual, we start with a hello and reminder. Please keep in mind this call is being recorded and monitored, and it's gonna be. No, I'm not sure why I always think about recorded and monitored at the same time. It's not monitored, I guess. It's recorded. It's gonna be saved to YouTube for the future generations. So just make sure to leave if you don't want to be recorded, or just turn off the camera and change the name. You can change the name in the list of the participants. So you're gonna be anonymous.
Change your IP address and
yeah, and use Tor and other tricks to trick the system. Before we jump, we're gonna jump into the main topics on the agenda. As usual, especially that again we have many people on the call. If you would like to, it's like your time now. If you'd like to introduce yourself, if you're on the meeting for the first time, if you want to share with the other, with others why you're here, then that's the best time to do it. You don't have to. It's just your option to do it, and it's now. Anyone?
I'll go. I'm Colin Sullivan. I'm on the NATS team, NATS.io. And, in the past, we've had some work by you guys for NATS and the AsyncAPI. We've had some interest in some of our shared users in expanding that. So I just wanted to listen in, see where things are at, and then we may ask them to work on some contributions, or we will directly ourselves.
Awesome. Good to have you back.
Good to be back.
Anybody else wants to say something? Okay, so first two items, it's gonna be quick. And Jonas, I guess you're still up to with your item, right? The one we discussed in the comments, because I didn't have time to put it on the agenda, but of course it's consider it's on the agenda. So the first topic is Google Summer of Code. So just give me a second. I'm gonna share a link with you. So there's a great announcement from our side, but let me just make sure that everyone knows what Google Summer of Code is. Like now, Google Summer of Code in few words. It's Google organizes every year a kind of program where students can join open source, and open source can teach, mentor students on the open source. And it's all done in public in different open source organizations. Open source organizations can apply for propose some different solutions that students could work on, students around the world. And then students can propose solutions, then Google accepts or not with the organization. The proposals assign slots, like assign, not sure what's the English name for it. Like, let's say, you like an employment, like temporary employment. I don't think you can say it's temporary employment, but you basically get a spot in a given organization to work on something. And then as an equivalent at the end, of course, you get some money. But I think the most important is that students get this super cool opportunity to work on open source and engage with open source at an early stage of the career, which is awesome. And this year we applied from AsyncAPI. We were not accepted, but Postman applied as well, and they got accepted. And because few of us work at Postman, then of course we got an offer from Postman that maybe some ideas that were not accepted because we were not accepted could go through Postman. And that's how we ended up with having 5 slots assigned to AsyncAPI organization through Postman. So the good news is we're gonna have 5 amazing folks working with us for next few months on different ideas. And there is, for example, Aryun that is on the call that will work on a proposal for AsyncAPI application relation finder. So a library that can pick up several AsyncAPI documents and find relations between them, like discover channels, relations, publish, subscribe stuff, etc. There's also Nectarios that will do application simulation, AsyncAPI application simulation that will be supported by Jonas here. There will also be Wahab, which is also known from our Slack as ACE, that will work on explore the idea of having a chatbot that can understand your architecture and then suggest how the AsyncAPI document could look like based on the questions and answers you have with the chatbot. And Ayush, who will work on AsyncAPI div, and Kuda, that will do a library for AsyncAPI document optimization. So that will the library will notice that you, for example, have the same message used in channels multiple times. So it's gonna suggest you that you can optimize your document by moving the message into the components to shrink the size of your document. So many different libraries we're gonna work on for next 3 months. So, and I explicitly wanted to mention all the names. If you are on the call, and a huge request to the community. Now we have this period of community bonding, although these folks got selected mainly because they started the community bonding long ago. They joined our Slack a few months ago. They already engaged in few issues, which is awesome. So my huge request, but I think it's obvious, let us make sure that they have a good time with us at AsyncAPI organization whenever they ask some questions or they ask especially for feedback about the work they do. Please engage with them. So I'm gonna paste a link in the chat to the summary website from Google Summer of Code that you can look at later. We're gonna put a summary of the projects that folks will work on. We're gonna put it in the next status update blog post that will update us on what happened on May. Till that time, we're gonna have already repositories created for each library. So if anyone is already interested with some of the ideas I mentioned, then feel free to jump in and engage with this amazing group. Thank you. Anyone has something to add? Maybe you shy folks that just joined the AsyncAPI community. Do you want to say something? No? Ace, still no? Okay, I'm not gonna push that much. Now, next topic is the release 2.1. So as you know, we started activities a few weeks ago already to prepare for 2.1 release. So I think important for you to know is this link that I just pasted in the chat. So the cool stuff is that we have part of the automation done. So we're ready to publish the release artifacts for the release candidates for the parser, the JSON schema, and the spec. Ayush is pretty advanced with setting up the automation of like, let's say that whenever we have a release candidate, we also get updated release candidate documentation on the website. And we already have at least 2 candidates, I think, for merger, 2 proposals from Dale. So just a reminder for you folks, if the 2.1 release is scheduled for June, so it's still a few weeks for it to happen. So if you want to, get something in, but of course, if the proposal is already floating around in the community knows about it, and it's just a matter of making sure it gets into the release, then please, that's the best moment to work on it, to get it into 2.1 release. And if you don't, if you think that some idea it's already accepted, but you don't have time to add something in the parser, you're like super busy, feel free to put information in the general channel. If there are others that are waiting for a given feature, maybe they can jump in and help. So even if you're the champion of the idea and you made already a lot of work to get it accepted, like don't feel like you have to do everything. Just ask for help in the general channel, and maybe others can help. Any questions about this 2.1 release? No? Okay. Okay, cool. So Jonas, I would say the stage is yours. Of course, I need to make you a co-host because you want to share screen, right?
Yeah, but do we want to do Q&A first and take it in the end instead?
I mean, it's up to you, I would say. So far I'm enough of speaking. If you can take over it, I would highly appreciate it. I mean, of course, I'm going to jump into discussion, but if you could continue.
Yeah, sure. Just give me a second. Now, how do I do this? I'm just gonna share this one here. I have no idea how to actually, can I do this? Can you guys see this?
Yep, that's good.
All right, so me and Lukasz have had a small discussion with our intent API for our parsers. And I actually just want to bring that up here and try and explain the core, like the main discussion that me and Lukasz have had so far, and try and get your thoughts on it actually. So how it currently is with our parsers, if you want to build any tooling for it or for the spec, it is that you have, let's just say you have application A and you want to produce some message over some channel to some external, either broker, server, whatever protocol you're using. It doesn't matter in this example. The way that you define that with the async API at the moment is that you describe the external point of view that this application or application A that that you can subscribe to this message because application A is producing it. Someone's trying to enter 2 seconds. Hello? And exit this. There. Sorry, somebody was trying to get into the call. And I have no
Multitasking.
idea how to.
But we still see your screen. It's okay.
Oh, it was just somebody tried to get into the call.
Then don't worry, because I still have rights. So I'm admitting people if they join. So just ignore.
All right. So this is how we define it with the AsyncAPI spec at the moment. And we have some work, like some issues at the moment with the perspective of this. But when it comes to tooling, for example, if we want to, for example, generate some code, for example, from the perspective of application A, we have to go in and get the subscribe operation, which in this perspective means the publish operation for the application. And if you want to do anything from the external point of view, you use it as is, basically. Now, in the code, this is quite weird and confusing, at least if you don't know the specification. So with the new intent API, we tried to remove this confusion by, and this is just our vocabulary that's bad, but we defined the application A as application and the external as a client. Which is by no means a final vocabulary for it, but this is just what we could come up with when we made it. Now by introducing this with the intent, we can make the code way more cleaner. So if you do anything from the application's point of view or perspective, you can just say, give me all the publish operations for the application. It doesn't need to know anything about the problems that we have with the spec or how you actually define it with the spec. It doesn't really matter from the tooling perspective. And again, if you want the external point of view and develop tooling for that, you just say client subscribe operations. So this is our way of abstracting from the problems that we have with the specification through these intents. And I'm gonna post the links for the discussion and for the API as well, just so you have some more information there. Now, Lukasz, I don't know if you want to take it from here and explain your perspective, why you think it's.
Yeah. So I think the core here is of the discussion we are having there, and it would be nice if more than 2 people involved in the discussion, because I think the parser API is pretty crucial. But the main main place where we don't have an agreement is that, from my perspective, the parser API should not solve the challenges we have with the spec. So if we have some confusion in the spec, my standpoint is that the confusion should be fixed with the spec. So if there's a need for some additional vocabulary or something, it should be in the spec, not in the parser, because the parser, we might have some nice vocabulary for functions in the parser to solve the issue with the spec. But the problem is that not everyone have to use our parsers. Not everyone have to use our official parser API design. They still might want to write their own, and they will still have the problem with the spec that was there in the first place. So I would say, like, to summarize all the comments we had there, that's the core here. Like, where should these confusions challenges be introduced? like solutions to be introduced? Is it like always spec? Or is it fine if sometimes it's just the tool that is trying to fix the spec?
So has a conclusion been reached, or is this still the open discussion?
It's still open.
Yeah, so it's totally open. There's no rush, let's say.
Okay, cool.
And I think the main goal here was to make sure that wider community knows about the discussion and let us continue. But if
Can you share a link to the thread in GitHub or equivalent?
I have shared it in the chat.
Ah, cool. Yeah, sorry, I just missed the link.
Yeah, we started this as a discussion to explore also GitHub discussions if they help out with lengthy discussions.
So I do have an opinion here, of course. So I think it needs to be on the parser first, because either way we fix it on the spec or not, there's always going to be this 2 point of view, right? So for instance, even if we solve it somehow on the spec, there's always going to be this situation where there is something like I don't know, say for instance, microservices architecture, and the microservices are communicating through RabbitMQ or Kafka or whatever. And then in this situation, it's like an application talking to the broker, another application talking to the broker, you know, this distributed messaging architecture. But in this case, it will be like the, you know, like the application point of view, if you want, right? It's like everyone is an application, and this is publishing, so we use publish. In the future, imagine we change it. Because I'm publishing, I use publish, and because I'm subscribing to the broker, I use subscribe. Imagine we change it. But if we do it like this, then when we have a case like a public WebSockets API, for instance, like it's the case of Slack, we'll have the problem that you want to communicate people what they can do with your API, not what your API is doing, right? So in this case, it's like I want to tell people that they can publish a message to me. I'm Slack, and you can publish a message to me, or you can subscribe from my messages. So there is it's usually, this discussion always happen around WebSockets and public, private, and or if you want to think about it as well, is a broker-based client server architecture, right? So there can be messaging through client server as well, like WebSockets, like servers and events. All these situations, it's weird to find a publish and in the spec when you actually want to subscribe. And then if you're gonna generate a client to consume this public API, then you'll have the same problem, but on the client generation. You'll see publish, and actually you will have to do a subscribe because you see publish. So this problem is always going to be there, because
doesn't that mean we just need to be explicit then?
Exactly. So that's my point. So that's where I want to go right now. So with the parser, what we're doing is being explicit. The problem is, well, one of the problem is, what the hell is application? What the hell is client? What does it mean, right? We need to come up with better names, probably. So far, I can't think of any different names that don't have any other connotations, existing names, let's say. But anyway, so one imagine that we find the names. If we become explicit with the point of view, with what we want to do, what we want to extract, the information that we want to extract, then the problem is gone. There's no confusion. From the client point of view, in the case of Slack API, for instance, if I build a client for the Slack API, then it's like, I want to know which messages I can subscribe to. And then the parser is gonna be looking at either subscribe or publish, depending on what it means, right? And in the case of a microservices architecture, let's say a private one, where it's a different paradigm, then it's gonna look into a different place. Instead of, and you're not gonna use, give me all the client messages, because you're not a client, you're an application. Again, the terminology is confusing. So there needs
I ran
to be
into this.
something done.
So I ran into this when we tried to build our hub specs. We ended up with, some of our products you can subscribe to, some you can publish to, some you can only subscribe to in certain language, like in SSC, because we have the classic example of we support 3 protocols for everything, right? And one of them is SSC, which is only one direction. So what happens then is we end up with this document, which is about, a kilometer long, because there's so many pieces of spec in there. And when you add the ability for a wildcard creation, you suddenly just do not have enough, either your machine generating these specs, at which point you need to have things which are incredibly explicit, because I want a machine generate my API specs. I want to have them generated from code, because I want to be able to say, right, this is all the namespaces supported by this publisher, which I can do explicitly with something like Fast API for REST.
But am I missing something? I don't think it's related to the discussion.
But no, so the problem is that it's about the explicitness again. So if I can't generate it, if I want to generate a spec from a machine, right?
Yeah.
I need to have the spec having absolutely everything as an explicit point.
Yes. But that's not the case right now.
No, so do we need to fix the spec is the question.
That's my point. So
yeah.
We need to fix the spec. But the thing is, even if we fix the spec and we come up, for instance, one of the solutions that has been discussed is we add 2 more verbs. We have publish, subscribe, and then we have client publish, client subscribe, for instance, something like this.
Okay.
And then publish and subscribe are from the application point of view by default. And this is like publish means I'm publishing to the broker, for instance. And subscribe means I'm subscribing to the broker. And then you have client publish and client subscribe, which means that you as a client can subscribe to my messages, or you as a client can publish to me. You know what I mean? For this, specifically for these public APIs, which in these cases, it will become useful, right? If that's the case, then we're explicit on the spec. We're being explicit on the spec as well, not only in the parser. But sorry, I think I'm running out of battery on the.
No worries. I'm going to go read in detail this, because I have
I
have strong opinions, but I don't have enough information to
we
comment.
We all do.
So I'm going to go read more before I make a comment.
We'll do. That's the key thing here. That we need to come up with a solution together, I think. And the thing is that even if we add explicitly to the spec, it needs to be also solved in the parser. It's not going to disappear from the parser. And what we're trying to do here is that we put it in the parser first, right? So whenever we migrate the spec, you don't get a breaking change on your code. You know what I mean?
That I get. That I'm 100% behind. Like, the breaking APIs is, shall we say, not on.
So that's the point. That's the point of starting with the parser instead of starting with the spec. Because if you write your code using our parser right now for V2, and then you upgrade to V3, where we introduce breaking changes in this meaning of the verbs, then you have to go all over your code and change your code so it's adapted to the new meaning. But if we do it now in the parser first, and you start writing your application using our new API in the parser, then whenever we update the spec to introduce these new meanings of the verbs, you don't have to change your code at all. You just have to upgrade your the parser, and that's it. It will work, right? Because these point of views are not going to disappear. We just need to. I think it is as it is right now. It is very abstract, and it's not being very explicit. We're not being explicit if it's application, if it's client, or if it's call it whatever you want. We're not being explicit, and that's the problem, that we're not being explicit. And and what we're trying here, even though the API might look a little bit ugly at the cost of having an ugly API on that point, you solve the problem that people will not have to migrate their code, because even if we break the spec, even if we make a breaking change, right, on the specific meaning of publish and subscribe, and if we add client publish and client subscribe as two new verbs, still now the parser will try to look for those client publish, client subscribe on version 3, right? But that's something that the parser will do. You only have to run, if you're on the npm or node, you just have to upgrade your npm package of the API, and that's it. Your code remains the same. That's why I'm willing to take this task first on the parser and then on the spec, independently of what change we end up doing on the spec. And that's why I was asking Jonas and Sergio and Maciek. I think I was asking them in the beginning, like, don't think about AsyncAPI, think about event-driven architectures. So we should not be thinking about the AsyncAPI document and a specific map to the document, but instead forget about AsyncAPI, imagine it doesn't exist. And we want to talk to user intent, right? So I'm a user, I want to get all the messages I can subscribe to in this broker, or I'm building a client for my WebSocket APIs, public WebSocket APIs maybe. And as a client, I want to get all the messages that I can subscribe to and all the messages that I can publish to this API, or I am the API. I'm the server, and so the point of view is reversed. So you know what I mean? So this is not going to disappear because this is something that is inherent to having two models, at least two models here, which is client server, like in the case of WebSockets APIs or servers and events or HTTP, and broker-based, let's say, or private broker-based architectures where everything is an application, right?
Just as a query, do we have that list of the test cases, the kind of the test cases we should run the the thought process through? Because like you described a series of things which are quite valuable to have. If we have the list, we can basically say works for X, doesn't work for Y.
There's even a list of edge cases that we might do to the spec in the future, and see how the new API will behave, if it breaks the API or not.
Cool.
So the thing, it is more to. So the thing here is not related to the AsyncAPI document. It's more than the parser should be capturing user intent. It's like, I don't care how the AsyncAPI document looks like. I instead of focusing on the AsyncAPI document, I think we should focus on the user, what the user wants to do with AsyncAPI, right? And it's like, as a user, I want to get all the messages. I don't care where the messages are located in version 2 of the spec. In version 3, they might be located in a different place. But I don't want this to break, right? Whenever I upgrade my documents, I don't want my code to break, because then what's going to happen is that we're not going to upgrade the spec. We're always going to be using V2 because it's good enough for me. So who cares? Right, that's what's going to happen. So we want to prevent this.
The thing is that, and my concern here, it's on how much is really this problem of the interaction between the source and the sink and applications overall being polluting the spec by itself, right? So are those limitations from the parser that really need to be addressed at just the parser level, or is something that really needs to be reflected on the AsyncAPI? Because sometimes what we see is that just twist the spec just to fulfill a limitation on one of the implementations, just because you didn't or you were not able to address that at that specific level. Adding just components and verbs to the spec just because of the parser, it may make it very complex from the other use cases perspective, just to address one specific edge case on the parser, right?
So the idea, I mean, to me, the idea is that we fix it on the, not fix it, but we prepare on the parser at parser level, and then we fix it on the spec. But like immediately after, actually this publish subscribe thing is something that we want to address next. So, but it needs to be addressed on both sides, not just in the spec, of course, and not just in the parser, and not just in the spec. And also it's important that we address it on the parser as well, not just in the spec, because the way it is, the spec, right, the parser right now is a map. So the parser behaves like a map, a direct map of the spec. So if we move things around on the spec in a break and change way, then we're breaking the parser API. And that's what we want to avoid, right? So what we're doing here is not so much about publish and subscribe. What we want to create here is an evolvable API, right? It is more, I mean, to me, my proposal was that, like, to me, the way we can create an evolvable API is forgetting about the async API and focusing more on what the user wants to achieve, to accomplish, right? But it needs to be done on both sides. But the problem is that we cannot change V2 anymore. V2 is published. It's going to be like this. It's immutable, and it needs to work with V2 as well, right? Because many people are going to be using V2 for many years, and they're not going to upgrade to V3 or V4 or whatever, right? Because V2 is good enough for them. But we want them to, the software they write with our parser, to be prepared for them to upgrade to V3 or V4 of the spec whenever they need it.
Effectively, it's like a language standard. You have to keep upgrading the compilers regardless.
What, sorry? Again?
Like a language standard. You have to upgrade the parser or the compiler, and this compiler would be.
So it's defining, exactly. So the thing is that it's defining the API of the parser in a way that captures the user intentions, like, and then we translate these user intentions into V2 of the spec, V3 of the spec, V4, whatever, right? So it's a facade, right? It's a true facade. So then you can evolve the spec as you wish. You can make as many breaking changes as you want by, I mean, unless you're removing stuff, of course. But you can move things around as you want, or change the meaning of subscribe and publish. That your code is going to remain the same, right? It's going to remain the same. You just have to upgrade your library, your parser, and that's it. It works, and you start using the new version of the spec that has this problem fixed of the publish and subscribe, right? And you have to migrate nothing, like you have to change nothing on your code. That's the whole idea, right?
Yeah,
and,
but I don't think that anybody questions the intent-driven API idea. It's more about that we should like take two things into consideration. Like the world will not be perfect. Like it's not gonna be, you're not gonna have like 100% of developers using just the parser and not knowing the spec.
of course.
So the thing is that at the moment, like the API introduces like custom vocabulary that, like, for people that know both, it's gonna be even much more confusing. That like it's gonna, like, from the developer experience, usage of the API, it's gonna be much harder.
It is. That's why I was saying that maybe, I mean, to me, the way to do it is to make it, to come up with a better vocabulary for this, instead of, because I still think the way it is right now, like application publish operations, for instance, it is still too mapped to the spec, you know? So if you don't imagine, so if you don't know, if you know nothing about AsyncAPI, but you've been doing event-driven architectures, and you see application publish operations, you still don't know what it does. If you know nothing about AsyncAPI, but you know EDA, so you know event-driven architecture. So
Yeah,
there needs to be
it's because
the
also
vocabulary
of the
needs to be
DevX,
closer.
right?
Exactly. So then the vocabulary needs to be more, in my opinion, needs to be closer to the so it needs to be farther from AsyncAPI and closer to the event-driven architectures concepts. You know, maybe we should be introducing multiple methods, like messages that I can publish to the broker, messages that I can, I don't know, even long names might work. I don't know. The thing is that I think if we make it clear, but not mapping to AsyncAPI, but more to the event-driven architectures concept, the easier it will be. But the problem is that EDA is a non-uniform world where each broker and each protocol is doing their own stuff, and they use the same terms interchangeably between them, and the same term might mean different things in different protocols, and that's a mess. So yeah, I think this step here is just an initial step to align the language that we use in EDA, and then it will have, of course, it will have an impact on the spec. But that's my point. So it's like, if I see, again, if I see application or client publish operations, and I know nothing, I've never seen AsyncAPI, I have no idea what is it doing. And that's my point. We should, with this name, we have to come up with a name that is describing this from the point of view of someone who has experience on EDA and not on AsyncAPI. So AsyncAPI should serve EDA and not the other way around.
So yeah, and I think that's how this discussion between me and Jonas started. That mainly my first question was like, does the intent-driven API means that the name of the function has to sound like an intent? Maybe we can actually turn it around. Like, if I'm a dev and like event-driven world is so complex, like then I care about messages first. Then like just function like a message, and then on the option level, even IDE tells me like what options I have, what kind of messages, like the one that I can publish to, the one that I can subscribe to. Then like the first thing that I type in and explore the API is the most basic ones that don't have any specific vocabulary. Why not?
But that's the problem, that when you say that I can subscribe to, that I can publish to, but who are you? Who is I?
Yeah, I mean, I just quickly said,
you know,
like,
what I mean? So
yeah, but I just quickly provided the name of the options. But the thing is that with the message, you're already like, it's more intuitive in the API. If you're looking for like messages, then you're gonna type message, and then basing on the option, of course, it's all about then on the vocabulary on the message. But then it's much more intuitive to browse through the API than trying to catch this complex vocabulary in the name of the function. Then, but
that's in the end, I think we all agree that it's the naming what's failing here. It's the naming of the functions. We just need to come up with better naming.
So
I do like the approach that for example, the Knative eventing team have regarding source and sync or target. That really identifies what you are gonna be doing as part of the flow of the data, or the flow of the connections. Perhaps getting something around that, those words could work.
So we're back to naming just being a ridiculously hard problem, to be honest, because sync and source are still overloaded as hell in this space.
Well, define the flow of the data, right? Yeah, they're overloaded, but from the flow perspective, they're very, very concrete.
Well, you say that, but then imagine you're generating, a Kafka Connect plugin, right? And you're generating a sync plugin, and now I'm receiving from Kafka inside my sync plugin. and then I'm sending out. So I'm syncing out of Kafka. The problem is literally that thing means two things now. And this Fran's nodding because it's exactly the same problem. Like the flow is always well defined in context. And as soon as the context switches, it stops being defined. Like even sender and receiver don't quite hold up at times. And yes, we've got to make a line in the sand somewhere, I think, and say, for this, in this world, we mean this, and then equivalencies. But it's a lot of work. And there's a lot of discussions to be had about which ones are which.
It's not going to happen. Yeah, I don't think it's going to happen. We're humans. If it was all about an application, libraries or whatever, it's easy. We automate things and that's fixed. It's fixed in a few months. But we're humans. We have to agree. We have to discuss. That's never going to happen. Yeah.
So with these words, let's continue discussion on the GitHub discussions. I think this presentation and discussion already highlighted like was a good entry to the discussion. So please jump in there. Also feel free to open separate discussions on the parser API. And yeah, let's discuss and disagree a lot. Then it's gonna bring some good stuff. Next topic would be, let's go back to what Colin asked about. I can't say much. Jonas, can you like provide some updates on the TypeScript template for nuts that you were working on? Because as far as I remember, that was the only initiative on our site that's like actively maintained.
Yeah, so it's still a work in progress, right? That's also just released a new library instead of the TypeScript library that's currently used that has to be converted. And I worked on some .NET client wrappers for Nats as well, but that's also work in progress. And one of the more major issues or major major issues or features is that we have to have some consistency between the code generators, which refers to, we have let me see if I can find it. We have a feature request about adding a framework. Where is it located?
Well, we can certainly help out wherever we can. I know our Node, actually everything's Dino and TypeScript and Node now. Our maintainer's on vacation this week, but you know, I can ask him to take another look and see if there's any direction he can provide or any contributions there. We have a shared or common user who I believe is going to want .NET. They're a heavy Java user as well, and then also TypeScript. You know, offline, I'll be happy to, you know, I can ask them if they want introductions, up to you guys. But yeah, just any way we can help, any way we can contribute. And, you know, we think Nats and AsyncAPI is a great match.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to jump in and even take over the wrapper and keep developing that, that's also perfectly fine. Like anything is possible where it matches your needs, basically. One of the core issues is also the bindings for Nats, where I kind of stitched together some vocabularies or ways to define request reply pattern. But that's just my workaround on a bigger issue with the specification. So that also needs to be addressed. But yeah, jump in anywhere you want.
That's actually a big one. Yeah. So having request reply support on the spec, it is something that I never touched because I never used this case in my career. So I was hoping that someone will jump in at some point and help with this. Because and I know that especially Nats has different operations or type of operations. It's not just publish subscribe. You can have requests and replies, unlike other brokers. So that will be super interesting to have you involved on that part as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and you're already in our Slack, so feel free to invite others, and we can discuss this like in details there as well.
All right, sounds good. Will do.
Awesome.
We really appreciate all the work you guys have done with Nats. I mean, that's really, it's just, it hasn't gone unnoticed. And, you know, again, we're highly appreciative. So thank you.
Jonas is for me on this side, so well
It's
done.
yeah. It's all Jonas' work, so almost all.
Okay, so 4 minutes left. Anything else? Anybody?
Planning to be doing a live stream most of next week using AsyncAPI and Kafka, as the Twitter thing was talking about. So it should be online most of next week streaming about that. Feel free to drop in. The details will be on the Slack as soon as we've actually put together the cards and the rest of it for it and locked down the times. You have a classic thing of I decided to do something and the marketing department said that sounded too interesting. And it then became official. So I have to now get it all approved.
Okay, cool. Don't forget to share links on Twitter.
Definitely will do.
And LinkedIn.
Everything in it should have a spec next. The idea is I want to try and create a series of like just like 3 streams, all with specs attached, and then demonstrate how to use those to generate like listening clients and things.
And speaking about live streams, I was planning on, it's just a rough idea yet, but I was planning on doing it soon. Do some live streams while some of us, we do some, what's it called?
Brainstorming.
Lukasz, some brainstorming. He reads my mind, that's why I'm asking. So we do some brainstorming on how to fix the publish subscribe issue on the spec. And why I'm saying that we do it with some of us is that I don't want to do it just one day. I would love to do it like multiple times, probably every week. Lucas is subscribed to Fran. But who's Lucas and who's Fran, right? So yeah, I was saying that I want to do it like multiple times so we can all have the opportunity to chime in and get the community also to participate. And if during the conversation there's someone participating via chat or something and wants to jump into the live stream, like to do it very casual, right? Like you want to jump in and participate live because chat is not enough for you, or you just want to explain your concepts or your idea better. You can of course jump live. And I was thinking on doing it more often, like probably every week with some of you. I was planning on starting with Lorna. So Lorna, I already discussed with her that it will be a good idea because she proposed a solution for solving it, which I think is very creative. And I think it will be a great exercise if we all join forces multiple times and we draft some ideas on how to solve it. And we take no decisions on the live streams. It's just pure brainstorming. We'll note down all the ideas we had. We keep discussions on GitHub issues, on Slack or whatever. And then at some point, we may have a good idea, hopefully, on how to solve this. And we can, and someone can champion this and make it a reality, right? So yeah. So you're all invited, by the way. Just I'll leave some messages on the GitHub discussion around the parser intent API on Slack and everywhere, so you should be able to see it. And yeah, it's a long-term thing. I don't want this to be like just 1 or 2 meetings and we're done, right? No, I think it's an important topic, and we need to be sure that whatever we do is the right thing, right? So yeah.
And we're going to be loud about it. So whenever
Yeah.
you post it somewhere, we're going to retweet whatever is needed. So yeah.
Yeah.
It'll be fun to watch. It's always good to have like high-level discussions on
No,
streams.
watch. It's going to be fun to participate.
Oh, I might. Well, you try and shut me up.
We don't want people to watch. We want people to get involved into into the thinking process, into the not decisions, but thinking process. So it will be more like you and I working, each of us at home or wherever you work. And
this is home still. This is my garden. This is a shack in my garden.
Your office home, not home office. Your office home. So yeah, it's just like working in public, if you want, right? So
very much, yeah. That's a really good move, particularly with anything open source, to show we actually are doing things.
Yeah.
Like, well, watch the code commit as the people are actually doing it.
And so people can also see how bad we are and at thinking on difficult things. And
it's probably a good thing actually for the community. Just like there's enough people think open source maintainers are true geniuses wherever we're not.
Exactly.
No. Who just were like going every 3 seconds anyway.
we'll kill a few imposter syndromes. So whenever they watch us, it will be like, fuck, these guys.
Be like, those guys.
Yeah. These guys. The solution is in front of them.
And then hopefully they will just invite them on to chat and then get them to solve it for us. Even better.
So yeah.
Fran, was it Ada in the background calling for the end of the meeting?
Yeah. She was. Yeah.
Okay, so we have to listen to the girl. She needs her dad. So thanks a lot for all of you to join today. And yes, see you on Slack or somewhere else, or in 2 weeks on the meeting.
Bye-bye.
Thanks
Thanks for joining.